Hi, welcome to the Last Man channel. You're joining me for the first installment in a series where you and I are going to drive across an empty post-apocalyptic desert wasteland scavenging for parts for our old Warsaw-era Soviet car. And while we do it, we're going to have a little chat because we're going to look at the landscape around us and fallen society, and we're going to ask ourselves, what could we do to rebuild it better? So not only are we going to take a little road trip together, but we're also going to have a little low-key conversation about utopias, about the right kind of world, the perfect kind of world, according to some famous theories, right? So let's jump into it. So this is the long drive. I have prepped things just a little bit for us. Okay. Let me show you the world we're dealing with. Okay. Here it is. It's a desert. All right. We seem to be the last ones around. There's just nothing out here. Here, let me, there we go. We'll use our binoculars. That's a bus stop, but it's at the very end of a road that, well, goes and goes and goes and goes. This one road. Okay? You and me are going to follow it. Because there's nothing here. Alright. Here's our mode of escape. This is a Skoda 100. So if you're not familiar with Czechoslovakian cars from 1969 to 1977, you might not know about this thing. Surprising part about it is there's an engine in the back. It's a 1 liter, 4 cylinder. It's kind of water cooled. I've filled up the water tank, filled up the oil. I think this thing might be making 40 horsepower. Okay, the thing about Skodas is the trunk is in the front, and they had a reputation for being too light. So we are going to go ahead and put a little weight in this thing, okay? Should help it drive a little better. That's right, I'm loading barbells in. Now I also used all our remaining gas, okay? Good. We'll just leave that gold bar there. It's pretty useless now. There's nothing but mutant rabbits running around out there. The last of our gas was 2.5 liters. Okay? So there we go. Oops. Right now it's looking a little dark out there, but no time like the present. Okay? Heard that noise is normal. Is the Skoda after all? Ooh, I feel like that sun. Uh-oh. Now maybe my sun visor is the problem. Right. Oh, we found the road again. Whew. Okay. So, giant mutant rabbits and one lonely road. No people. How did it come to this? I mean, I'm not really sure. But maybe the thing that crashed civilization was civil unrest. Maybe government got too corrupt for everybody. Maybe people couldn't handle it. And you know who thought about how to make the most just government ever? And we need headlights. The one who thought about how to make the most just society, a society where everyone would completely understand that things made sense, that everyone really was treated equally in the eyes of the law and of society, was Plato. You probably heard that name, right? Oh, circa like 400 BC, close to it. Plato was living in Athens in Greece. Now, Athens at this time, uh, as probably a lot of you know, was one of the first like democracies. It was a city-state. It was a little different kind of democracy than you and I would probably recognize today, but we owe a lot of our ideas about democracy to Athens at that time, right? And Athens is also the birthplace of some very notable figures in European, Western cultural history. It's called the cornerstone of Western civilization for a reason. A lot of the ideas that influenced Europe and by extension America, here in the United States, a lot of them came from actually ancient Greece about that time. A lot of them came from Plato. I think you're going to recognize a few things from the Republic, his proposition for the perfect society. I think you'll recognize a few things from it. Oh, wait. What do you think? We pull over and check out the creepy house, see if there's anything we can use. Of course we do. Alright. You know, back at the house, there was a BB gun. And a shop light that I didn't bring with us. But I don't really have a good way of checking this place out. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go to sleep, and we're going to see one of my favorite parts of the game. Yeah, that's pretty. Okay. Let's check this out. Sorry to interrupt our discussion, but oh, look at that. It's another Skoda. The body's in great shape. Better than ours. But that's all it is. This is a Travat. These were made in East Germany. Travats are, if I remember right, air-cooled 2-cylinders. One of the only cars slower than a Skoda like the one we're driving is probably one of these Travats. Here, let's move this bed. It's heavy. Somebody looks like they were barricading the entrances here, huh? Oil. Car radio. Well, we don't really need the oil. Okay. Look, a sponge. Let me show you what we can do with this. See this crummy door? Huh? Yay, make it look a little shinier, huh? Alright, that sponge is all used up. Bed on the roof. Of course there is. Binoculars. And a shop light. You know what? Let's not get caught in the dark again, huh? Sorry about the running. I'm hoping kind of keep my tone sort of chill for us because I know some of you might have this on in the background or something. Right. That's fine. They don't have any gas. Not much good to us. Okay. Shall we continue? All right. So, let's talk a little bit about what Plato thought the most just society was. See, Plato is largely responsible, um, at least he did his part, in making Western civilization think about logic and reason as the most important things. How do you design a religion? How do you design a society? How do you make decisions? For Plato, logic and reason were the only place to look. Intuition, things like that, they don't mean anything. See, for Plato, the planet is full of creatures, animals, insects. All of them do the things we do. They all eat, they all sleep, they all have instincts that they follow sort of blindly, right? But what human beings have that makes us special, and what Plato thought was our purpose, our highest calling, is reason, logic. You want to be the best version of a human, then you accentuate those things that make you especially human. For Plato, that's logic and reason. And I think you'd be gratified to hear that. We could take issue with a few things he says, but a lot of it's really progressive. For example, in Plato's Perfect Society, even in 400 BC, he really did think that men and women ought to be educated equally and ought to have equal access to things like serving in the military and things like that, which for him was pretty forward thinking for the time. So let's talk a little bit about it. Plato. And I don't want this to run too long for us. All right. Plato writes the Republic like all of his treaties, and there were something like 27 of them. He was a very prolific writer. He writes the Republic using Socrates as his mouthpiece. Socrates was his mentor, his role model. He watched Socrates be put to death by the angry leaders of the city of Athens in 399 BC. And he never really forgave Athens for it. We can see that Athens, which was run, it was still kind of a democracy at the time, although it had just lost the Peloponnesian War to Sparta, another Greek city-state. The one famous for, movies like 300, based on the Battle of the Pass at Thermopylae. But anyway, it means that he wasn't a huge fan of democracy, actually. He thought that when a crowd is making the decisions, they can be pretty wrong. Like the crowd in Athens, he thought was wrong to be mad at Socrates. See, here's the thing about Socrates. Socrates spent most of his time practicing what has become known as the Socratic method, asking questions. He asks a question, the person he's talking to gives an answer, and then he asks a question about the answer. He kind of nitpicks about these seemingly obvious common sense answers. And what he tends to do over the course of the conversation is expose that the person giving the answers doesn't know as much as they think they know. That their common sense answers don't make as much sense as they thought. And when he did that to important people, influential people, people who thought they should know everything, and when he did it in front of an audience, then he made some powerful enemies. And they killed him. Famously at his trial, in his own defense, he said that the unexamined life is not worth living, and he drank the hemlock, basically to just force Athens to actually follow through, instead of just trying to intimidate him and make him shut up or send him into exile. He made them actually give him the death sentence, and he became a martyr for philosophy. So that's Socrates. Most of what we get about Socrates in Plato's writings probably wasn't really anything Socrates said at all. He just becomes Plato's favorite character as this wise sage. Okay. So the thing about Plato is, besides distrusting democracy a little bit and really thinking logic and reason was the thing to lean on, for Plato, philosophical questions, big abstract concepts, these things weren't just like fun to consider in a YouTube video. For Plato, you lived your life according to them. They could be like world changing. So he undertook the examination of what the most just society was very seriously. And he does so in the Republic by describing a conversation between Socrates and several other characters. It starts out and I'm paraphrasing here, and I reserve the right to be super wrong about a bunch of it, but I'm trying to be accurate. It starts out in a conversation with a man named Thrasymachus. And Thrasymachus asserts kind of early on that when asked what is right and what's wrong, what's moral and what's immoral, Thrasymachus says, well, what's right, what's wrong, what's moral, what's immoral, that's all just whatever the people in power say it is. That in a society, whoever has the power to make the rules, they're the ones who tells everyone else what's right, what's wrong, etc. That there is no inherently perfectly right or wrong thing. Now, Socrates does not agree with this at all. He takes issue with it, as a matter of fact. And when Thrasymachus leaves, Socrates' friends, as kind of an exercise, as a matter of curiosity, as far as they're concerned, they want Socrates to explain why he doesn't agree, so they play devil's advocate. They kind of keep on with Thrasymachus' line, and Socrates talks to them, questions them as he would have Thrasymachus, and he comes to this sort of all-inclusive theory about what justice is, and then from after he defines what justice is, he feels like he can talk about what a just man is, what a just society is. He just works his way down, deductive reasoning. He makes a pretty good case for some things that you and I, we're going to check out this bus stop. Got anything good? He makes a pretty solid case for some things that you and I might at first glance think weren't that reasonable. In Plato's Society, the Republic, for example, children are raised by the state. So there you go. I'm just telling you that right up front. Spoiler alert. Brace yourself. But here's the thing. If Plato thinks that's the most logical and reasonable way to do it, if Plato thinks justice will be served, there's nothing at this bus stop, is there? If he thinks justice will be served by raising the children, having the state raise the children, then that's what he's going to do. And the reason he thought that should be how it went is that he figured, how do you make good citizens? How do you make sure that the people in your city know what's right and wrong and act according to it? Well, you take charge of their educations. And you can't really take charge of their educations if they're being raised by a bunch of, knuckleheads. So the state needs to take charge of education so that it can reinforce its values early on, the correct ones, right? Now that sounds a little spooky to you and me. But remember, Plato was trying to do what he thought made sense. Another thing that Plato was pretty okay with was lying to people for their own good. Socrates, in Plato's Republic, says several times that there's such a thing as a noble lie, that most people probably don't have the dedication or the patience to really understand what's really right, what's really wrong, what's really just, what's really unjust, what's really true, and that maybe they wouldn't even be able to handle it if they did know. So it's the job of the people in charge to kind of boil all those things down to a level that their citizens can grasp. Because not everybody's going to be up for being super enlightened. So you and I might think to ourselves, the most just city-state takes kids away from their parents and lies to its citizens. But hear me out, okay? Here's the thing. What Plato thought was best was that mankind and the society we create is in balance. That each of the parts of the man and of the society are there in the right measure. That somebody doesn't have too much anger or too much cowardice or something like that. But on the flip side, you can't be too calm. You can't have no passion. And you can't be so brave that you're an idiot who rushes into things and gets themselves killed. So he, like a lot of the ancient Greeks, advises that everything needs to be kind of balanced, needs to be in moderation, right? Within a man man or woman, within a person in the society, there needs to be balance. And for the society to promote that balance in the people within it, the society has to have balance. So how do you balance a society? Well, keep everything in its place. You need all the parts functioning the way they should. And he thought you need clear leadership. This democracy stuff is not clear. You have all the dumbos making your decisions for you in a democracy, according to Plato. Why would you do that? Plato proposed, and this shouldn't come as a surprise, that the perfect society would be led by a philosopher king. That the kind of person who has the dedication, the perseverance, the capability of really buckling down and understanding the truth behind everything, behind reality. That person should be running the show. That person should be calling the shots. So society should be run by a philosopher king. He should be at the top. Decisions should be made top down. And the philosopher king should have good people working for him, right? Good civil servants. That's what he is. He's a civil servant. And the people working for him need to be equally dedicated. So there are lots of different labels Plato's given to these different groups, like the ruling philosopher king level. He sometimes called the gold because he thought maybe people would understand it better if he talked about people in terms of having certain types of metals they're associated with, right? He even had a whole myth for it. But the gold rules at the top. The silver is the guardian, also known as the guardian class. That's like the police and the military. Civil servants who also are working for everyone else's good, right? Not their own. And to ensure that the ruler and the police slash military weren't corruptible, to ensure that power and wealth didn't make them act in self-interest instead of the interests of the civil society. Plato said that the ruler and the guardians, the enforcers, shouldn't have personal property. They shouldn't be allowed to have belongings. They should work as selfless civil servants, making decisions for the good of the state, and that they should live in, government like assigned housing. Rulers should just have kind of basic housing, basic clothes. His needs should be met. His or her needs should be met, but only just. And they really shouldn't even be allowed to have nice things, because otherwise, if they were, then people could bribe them with nice things. And the same goes for the military slash police. They would live in barrack style housing, that they would dedicate their lives to the state, that they would train as specialists, warriors, and that they would help ensure the stability and the justice of the state. Because you can't have corruption, or you'll throw the whole thing out of balance and you will ruin all the justice that this state was about. So what a good society needs is that strong, wise leadership at the top, a dedicated, professional group of civil servants who don't get to have possessions either. It can't be bribed, can't be corrupted. And then everybody below that, who he called the bronze and the iron, everybody below that, they could kind of carry on with life the way you and I know it. They could be businessmen, they could be workers, they could have parties, they could kind of just live their lives and try to prosper. And the philosopher king at the top would make the kinds of decisions that help them do that and live in a just society. So Plato thought a few progressive things. For example, a garage. For example, Plato thought that it'd be stupid for any society to waste all the potential in 50% of its citizens, and that women should be allowed to hold the same kinds of positions as men. Gotta like him for that. It's pretty dark for checking out that garage there. Plus, we've, well, this will get too long if we check it out right now. So I'll make you a deal. In the next installment, we'll pick up where we left off. We'll get into the details of Plato's Republic. We'll decide whether that's a good way to rebuild. Was Plato right about the perfect society? We'll get into some of the nitty gritty about it. And I'll try to be organized and focused. And we'll check out that garage over there so that we can see whether there's any like gas, any better tires, stuff like that for this car of ours while we head further down the road. All right, so if you enjoyed this content, hit like, please. It really helps out. Also, go ahead and subscribe if you want to get more of it, sent to you. Hit that bell so you can get notifications too. And I'll see you next time.